Today, no can do. Markets are closed. We're celebrating George Washington's birthday and, of course, also Abraham Lincoln's birthday. And lots to talk about on today's show, not the least of which is one of the people being celebrated today, George Washington. And, you know, there was some really unique things about these guys. And when they call them the Founding Fathers, that's why he was chosen to be the first general to lead our troops and the first president to lead our country and form the Constitution, all this other great stuff. But there were some things about George Washington that maybe those of you sitting at home, you're usually at work, you're not watching Liquid Lunch, and those of you in the Congress and the Senate in the middle of this divisive presidential race, think about the Founding Fathers on this. George Washington wrote to James Madison, as the first of everything in our situation, we shall serve to establish a precedent. It is devoutly wished on my part that these precedents be fixed on true principles. So when you get caught up in all this partisanship, even people on Facebook and social media hating on each other, find your principles and start there, okay? Other things you may not know about George Washington, he tolerated opposing views. Despite the fact that he feared a democratic system would lead to political violence, he made sure he conducted a smooth transition of power to his successor. He remained nonpartisan throughout his entire presidency and opposed the divisiveness of political parties. So both parties, you know, when you're trying to impeach your president because it's politically favorable to you or you want to overturn the voice of the people, and on the Republican side, even when we're talking about, you know, quoting all the Founding Fathers, remember the leader of the pack, the OG, the original, George Washington, opposed divisiveness. He was nonpartisan as president. He could have been called Your Highness, Your Excellency. He chose to be called Mr. President, and he established POTUS, President of the United States, as the way he wanted the office of the president to be referred to. So it would be nice if we can get back to a little bit of that, but it doesn't look anything close to that. And with a number of Democrats still vying to follow in George Washington's footsteps, I thought it might make sense to take a look at some of those who think they can emulate George Washington and replace Donald Trump. Let's start with Tom Steyer. He's the original billionaire in the race. He spent about $300 million running impeach Trump ads. He repeatedly and excessively and redundantly makes fun of Trump, says he isn't smart, saying he's deranged, he's got other problems, he needs to be impeached, he's a danger. He's running for president of the United States of America. He's being interviewed, you know, right before the Nevada caucus, which is coming up, and they're trying to make inroads with the minority and Latino communities for sure. So he does an interview on Univision, and here's how Tom Steyer is lighting up that minority base.
About his policies,
I think he's a very progressive man.
I'm asking because I feel like a lot of the times, this is our neighbor to the south, and a lot of people don't even know his name. So you know.
I forget.
Do you know his name?
I forget, but I'm just saying, I followed this policy.
I'm sorry, we are Telemundo, and our viewers are Hispanic speakers, and you're running for, you want the candidacy to,
yes,
you know, represent the Democrats, but you can't tell me the president
no.
of Mexico. You don't know who the president of Mexico is.
I followed this. Look, I followed this election. I've watched what's happening. Don't you think it's important
to know who the neighbor to the south is?
I do, but let me say this. I followed this election from the standpoint of, he was the mayor of Mexico City. He's a progressive man. I followed this policy from the standpoint of what does this mean for him getting along with us? What does it mean for him getting along with a right-wing nationalist president of the United States of America? And how are we going to relate to that? And so to me, I followed that very closely because there's a real question in Mexico, where are they going with their policies? This was a true change. This was a distinct change. It's not, so have I met him? No. Do I go to Mexico every single year? Yes. Do I understand that Mexico is at a crossroads in terms of how it is governed? And this was a distinct choice that scared the pants off people, off business people in Mexico and the United States.
Right,
yes, I do.
I don't know. You be the judge. I found it interesting that he just couldn't even think of the name of the president of our #1 trading partner in Mexico. It's kind of strange. And when he was pressed, the guy did a great job from Univision. He said, hey, we're Telemundo. And we really our people would like to know, the name of the president of Mexico. And he said, well, I know he was the mayor of Mexico City. So I guess that should be good enough. Mexico City, something like that. And the best part, if you ask me, is he said, do I go to Mexico every year? Of course I do. Meantime, he's over there in Riviera Maya in some big mansion sitting on top of a mountainside. He's not there for foreign relations, that's for sure. Amy Klobuchar was asked the same question by the same interviewer. CNN has a pretty serious embargo on that piece of the interview, so they must be protecting Amy's interest because it's hard to get our hands on. We'd like to get it. I'd like to show it to you. She also has made, some rudimentary comments about our president, and it turns out she also doesn't know who the president of Mexico is. And then as we continue down the line, that's 2 presidential candidates that should be wiped out already. Gary Johnson got knocked out of the race for not knowing what Aleppo was, which is a small town that was having some skirmishes in Syria. They don't know who the president of our next door neighbor is. And Pete Buttigieg, who's the golden boy, he used the shadow app and the Hillerite folks to muddy the waters in Iowa, came in a close second in New Hampshire, predominantly white areas, and now it seems the word is getting out that he's going to be he's going to have the first gentleman in the White House with him if he's elected, and that seems to be becoming a problem for Mayor Pete. Take a look at this.
You're saying that he has a same-sex partner? He? Yes. Yes. Yeah. Are you kidding?
Yeah, he's married to him, yes. We need to find out if that's serious.
Well, then I don't want anybody like that in the White House. So can I have my card back?
I don't know. He signed it. We could go ask.
I never knew that.
Well, so the whole point of it is, though, if he's a human being, right? Just like you and me, and should it really matter? That's what.
Well, he better read the Bible.
He does, and he says that God doesn't choose a political party because.
Why does it say in the Bible that a man should marry a woman then?
Well, I totally respect your viewpoint on this. I so totally do. But I think that we were not around when
How
that
come
was
this has
being
never
written.
been brought out before?
It's common knowledge.
I don't know. It seems like as we get into the Midwest, Mayor Pete's sexuality may become a problem. That's a woman who wants to take her vote back, basically. And I don't know how the rules work in some of these other states, but Frankie does, that's for sure. But I don't know.
My
is that
understanding,
allowed?
and happy George Washington's birthday
Hi, Frankie.
observed to you, John, and to all of our listeners. My understanding of how that is a precinct captain for the Buttigieg campaign.
So they're
And
allowed to lobby inside
that's
the...
what a caucus is, right? So a caucus system, which some people really like, it's basically that. You're associating...
So you can haggle them.
Exactly, right, exactly. But it's not where we're heading. What we saw in New Hampshire and what we'll see in South Carolina, unlike Nevada, is a more conventional primary election where you just go into
Right.
a voting booth, you fill out your choices, and you leave. There's no negotiating your support for somebody or another.
All right, and by the way, today, Frankie, you may notice the technical value of the show has been tremendous because
Right.
he's over there whipping the team into shape in the control room. But being there's no markets today, there's no stocks to talk about and all that
Interesting,
stuff.
a lot of people off today.
Bitcoin is taking a beating. Well, it's President's Day. And
Well-
much like Martin Luther King Day, when I felt it was our duty to be there for our audience and celebrate the great Martin Luther King Jr., I think it's our duty to be here and talk about the greatness of our country, our first president, many of our presidents, and our current president, who's having a pretty darn good week, if you ask me, a couple weeks here.
Well, that's very interesting. And you mentioned a couple of little-known facts about George Washington. I'll mention two. One, obviously, most people probably by now realize that the myth about him chopping down a cherry tree and not being able to tell a lie, that didn't happen. But here's something that most people didn't know, right? So George Washington, a lot of people make an issue of his teeth. and he struggled with dental issues
Yep.
his whole life. Now, what do you believe George Washington's teeth were made out of?
I know this answer. Different types of animals.
That's right.
Teeth.
That's
they were
right.
taking
So,
teeth from other animals,
most
and they
people
were making. They were wooden.
Most people think Washington had wooden teeth. That was not true. What John said is mostly true. It was ivory. It was teeth from hippopotamus. It was teeth from all sorts of animals, including human teeth. He
That's
actually would pay his slaves for their teeth, and some of his dentures had human teeth in them from his slaves, actually.
All right. Well, if you want to, we're going to do something special today that we don't usually do, being there's no markets and real stock stuff to talk about. We're going to open the phone lines to you.
Oh.
And you can call us or text us. There you go. There's the number. Call or text Liquid Lunch.
8 Morano.
Morano, exactly. And you could text us also if you have some questions, you want to give us some feedback. And if you call, it's got to be good, because Frankie's going to be on the other end of the horn there. He's going to be taking the calls. He's going to be screening them, so there's no lunatics. But we'd love to have some lunatics.
We'd love your feedback either via text or email at morano@nycradio.com on the new modifications we've made to the Frank Zone. Over the weekend, so far I've heard 2 reviews of the new Frank Zone, and while they were very pleased that my leadership has solved this show's production difficulties and technical problems, they say that I don't necessarily look as good here. No less an authority than broadcaster Russ Salzberg said it makes me look small and insignificant over here.
Oh, wow.
So we'll see.
Russ, I mean, is that how he feels?
That is.
Okay.
My mother also not a fan of the Frank Zone.
We're going to get into our my mom a little later, because she bought us these ties.
That's right. I'm wearing
today.
I'm wearing her tie today.
She got these for us. Look, Mom got us monogram ties for Christmas.
FMP.
The last thing I wanted to end with is this.
You want to take a call now, John?
If we have one, sure.
Okay, yeah. All right. We'll take a call.
Let's see who
this
we
is
have.
history.
Yes, my name is
Speaker.
Peter.
This is Peter.
To accept, press 1.
Peter, you're on live on Liquid Lunch with John Tobacco and the Frankster. Thanks for calling in.
Hey, great. Yes, thank you. Yeah, so I was watching how Mayor Pete has stepped forward to, or it's gotten out that he has, a life partner of another man.
Right.
Now, hi. And so about Mayor Pete, this isn't the first time that I've heard such a thing. Joan Rivers had a video clip prior to her demise where she stated that, asked the question about us having a gay president. And they said, she turned and said, oh, come on, get over it. We have, everyone knows about Michelle Obama, and she called her a tranny.
Oh,
so,
man. All right. Okay. That we don't need that guy. All right.
Hang on, Pete. We'll let John respond.
I remember Joan Rivers had some off-color things to say about, former presidents, or the thought. And Mayor Pete even said that he thought that he wouldn't be he wasn't sure that he'd be the first homosexual president in the White House either. So
right. Most historians believe that James Buchanan was probably gay.
There's some presidential history for you. All right, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back with one of our favorites right here on Liquid Lunch. Erin Sykes is going to be joining us. And Erin Sykes has been coming and joining us from the very beginning. She's a retail and sales strategist, and she's back in New York after traveling the globe. Every time I see her, she's somewhere else, but she's here to talk about the effects of the coronavirus on retail sales and all that other good stuff. We're going to take your calls. We're going to take your texts. We're going to be back right after this with more Liquid Lunch with Erin Sykes.